You'd be hard-pressed to find a more successful studio than Marvel. Due to the absolute bank that the MCU was raking in, a new surge of superhero movies started flooding theaters and streaming services to the point that the film landscape was oversaturated with superhero flicks. This new genre basically dominated box offices around the world, and aside from a few exceptions, almost every big-budget superhero movie released during this time period was a financial success, with even a decent amount of critically praised films among that catalog. However, you may have realized a recent trend with superhero movies, namely that the majority of them are not nearly as good as they once were, and most of them are actually barely breaking even, if not losing millions at the box office. Just like it led the charge of superhero dominance a few years ago, the MCU is also leading the genre on its way out the door, with utter financial disasters like Ant-Man Quantumania and The Marvels. But should we really be surprised? Everyone knows the saying, all good things must come to an end. Nothing stays on top of the hill forever, and shows like The Simpsons and SpongeBob have shown us all what happens when a franchise sticks around way longer than it should have. The MCU is in a state of crisis right now. After the abysmal, all-time worst box office performance of the Marvels, the studio has gone ahead and delayed practically all of their future projects to rewrite and rework them in an attempt to gain back their fans and resurrect the dying superhero genre. But the important thing to recognize is, barring some sort of miracle, the MCU is never going to dominate the market like it once did. Its time has passed, which means that the spot on the top of the cinema hill is once again vacant for the next massively popular genre to come in and take the MCU's place. And do you know what that next genre is? I mean, you should know if you clicked on the video, it's literally in the title. I would hope that you are able to read, and that's why you decide to watch this video, but yeah, it's video game movies. Video game movies! Now, some of you out there may be a little skeptical to jump to such a drastic conclusion right away. Is Professor Ghost Host really claiming that video game movies are going to be nearly as successful as a film franchise that brought in over $30 billion? And while I am not able to say for certain if the video game genre is going to be that successful, I can say that I truly believe the genre is going to be the next king in the film industry, and point to my evidence of why I think so. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is the path that the video game genre has taken over its lifetime, and how that compares with superhero movies. Before Iron Man came out in 2008, superhero movies still existed, although they were much less frequent and admittedly pretty lame most of the time. The genre had a rough start in its early beginning, with directors still trying to figure out how to properly adapt drawings on a magazine into a good, compelling, feature-length film to varying levels of success. Some of these films were okay, a rare few were great, and most of them were atrocious pieces of dog excrement that should have never been made. I'm looking at you specifically, Catwoman and Green Lantern, and dare I even invoke the name of Batman and Robin. But despite a very rough start, the genre eventually found a few consistent wins with the likes of Iron Man and Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. After building a little bit of momentum, the genre took off in the early 2010s, with almost every new Marvel movie being a smashing hit, sparking other studios to try their hand and try to hop on the new trend and make a quick buck. It's almost comparable to YouTubers all trying to hop onto a popular video genre when it's popping off like prank videos did in 2016. At its peak, the superhero genre could not fail, and even has a film that is the second highest grossing movie of all time in Avengers Endgame. But how does this have any relevance to the video game genre? Well, if you take a look at the path it's taking, it's starting to look eerily similar to the MCU. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Early on, the video game genre struggled heavily with some mediocre or alright movies, but mostly terrible releases that were not good at all, like Doom or, dare I say, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Oh, the live action one, by the way. Yeah, that one. The genre was still young, not releasing many movies, and directors were still trying to figure out how to effectively adapt animated pixels on a screen into a compelling movie to varying levels of success. But a few years ago, surprisingly, there were a string of consistently good video game movies, such as Detective Pikachu and the Sonic movie, that were not only critically fine, but also made a pretty penny at the box office. Slowly, more of these video game films started to be made, in an attempt quick to jump on the wagon before it takes off completely, and nowadays we are seeing more video game movies and shows than ever before. Do you see the similarities? Right now, the video game genre is following all the early beats the superhero genre followed on its journey to become the industry giant that it is today. Hold your horses though, Ghost Host, and hold them real good. This doesn't prove anything, some of you might say. Correlation is not causation. I honestly don't think I use that phrase appropriately in this context, but regardless, just because there are more being made, that doesn't necessarily mean that the genre is going to take over the market like the MCU. And I hear you. My horses are being held. I assure you, they are being held as good as horses can be held. I'm holding my horses. My horses are not going anywhere. I've got my horses locked up in the barn, in solitary confinement. I'm not horsing around here. No horses will be escaping under my watch. I've got them, all right? Yeah, I've got them in horse prison. Yeah. But now that I've over-clarified how much my horses are being held, let me tell you why I think there is much more to this than just a random flux of video game movies in the past few years. We all know that Hollywood's favorite thing in the world is the fans who are watching the movies. So, okay, yeah, no, I was lying. They do not care about us at all. The answer to the previous question was obviously money. But with that being said, when Hollywood smells money in the water, they're bound to pounce. Take a look at the gross from recent big video game movies. $405 million from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on an $110 million budget, $121 million from Gran Turismo on a $60 million budget, $130 million from the Five Nights at Freddy's movie on a $20 million budget, $1.3 billion from the Mario movie on an $100 million budget. Sheesh. All of these films' earnings more than doubled their production costs, and in some cases earned way more than even that. But why? These films are starting to be made better. Directors are finally figuring out how to properly adapt the source material into popular movies. More and more people are playing video games nowadays, and these films are reaching markets and demographics that most other films couldn't. As more and more casual movie fans start to grow tired of the same old superhero formula play out for the dozenth time, they are being more captivated by other types of popular media being adapted into films. It's been the same since the inception of cinema. Way back in the day, old books and grand stories from history such as the Ten Commandments, Frankenstein, Ben-Hur, West Side Story, and more were always the most successful films because they were based around stories and characters that a wider audience was familiar with. It's the same reason why you see the film market today oversaturated with sequels and remakes and reboots, why the 37th Fast and Furious movie gets studio approved, but the really cool, unique story idea gets shot down for being too risky, because those franchises already have an audience, so they are by nature safer films to release and typically can appeal to and draw out the casual moviegoer because they will recognize and understand the source material. Again, another YouTube comparison, it's like if you're on your homepage and you're recommended a video by one of your favorite YouTubers who you love, or this potentially cool video from this rando ghost host, but you have no idea who he is or if his video will be interesting or not. So you, as an audience member, will go with the more familiar and safer option and click on the video from, I don't know, Mr. Beast. Just remember that when your life falls apart because you watched the 10 millionth Mr. Beast video and you start to feel sad and depressed, just remember that you could have watched that cool ghost host video instead, and it would have been the coolest video you ever saw in your entire life. But ultimately, that's my reasoning for why the video game genre is the next big thing. The genre went through its rough phase, directors are figuring out how to properly make these kinds of movies, the box office numbers are exceedingly great, and the genre appeals to an already existing audience, and an absolute ginormous one at that. So mark my words, the video game genre is going to be the next industry giant, and sit on top of the hill as king of the market for the next decade or so. Just remember when that happens that you heard it here first, and when it comes true, I'll look like a glorious prophet. Or I could be completely wrong and be like Quebbelkopf predicting that 99.9% of all influencers will just be AI in 10 years and make a complete clown out of myself. Yeah, either way, please leave a like and subscribe. I really need your support because I'm trying to reach 10,000 subs by the end of the year, and now with all of that being said, release the horses, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a great day.